This year's summit theme is We Build This Table Together, Reclaiming Food, Land, and Power. And I am just deeply grateful to be able to spend the next 3 days with all of you learning, strategizing, and building community together in service of that effort. So, to officially open the 21st Annual Food Justice Summit, I am very pleased to introduce Dr. Kiran Joshi, Chief Operating Officer at Cook County Department of Public Health. And Dr. Joshi will share opening remarks for us today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Sarah Jane. I'm so happy to be here. Good morning and welcome to the 21st Annual Chicago Food Justice Summit. On behalf of Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, and the Cook County Department of Public Health, I'm so honored to welcome you. I welcome you alongside our wonderful partners at the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, the Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. Once again, thank you for hosting us. We're grateful to share this space with organizers, growers, artists, policy advocates, researchers, and community leaders who have shown up year after year to do the hard, hopeful work of food justice. If this is your first year attending, thank you for taking this step in making change. Again, a special thank you to the Chicago Food Policy Action Council and their fearless leader, Roger Cooley, and of course, the entire team at CIFPAC. My Cook County and Chicago colleagues and our local food system partners on the ground doing this work, we would not be here without you. I'm going to shamelessly single out CCDPH's very own Director of Chronic Disease Prevention, Amy O'Rourke here. Thank you, Amy, for all your hard work. For more than 2 decades, this summit has been a shared table, a place where ideas are exchanged, relationships are built, and movements are strengthened. And this year's theme reminds us of a truth that has always guided this gathering. We build this table together. We build this table together. Reclaiming food, land, and power is not just a theme, it's a call to action. With nearly 2 million Illinois residents impacted by recent SNAP instability and new eligibility rules now in force, the 21st Annual Chicago Food Justice Summit is a timely, urgent look at how one of the nation's largest cities is mobilizing to protect food access in a rapidly shifting federal landscape. As this community well knows, food justice is public health. We know that when communities lack reliable access to affordable, nutritious food, they face higher rates of chronic disease, maternal complications, and shortened life expectancy. I want to be clear that this is not because of individual choices, but because of structural barriers. Ensuring food justice means addressing the conditions that shape health outcomes and giving every community a fair chance to be healthy. I'm hopeful that these root conditions can be reshaped by our collective action. Together, Cook County and Chicago spend more than $100 million each year on food for patients, for youth, and others in our care. That purchasing power is a tool for change. We're working to make sure the food served in our hospitals, in our correctional facilities, and all our other institutions reflects our values. And that serving and selling more nutritious food and food that comes from local and historically disinvested food producers and ensuring safe and fair working conditions. So, advancing good food is not just about food, it's about resilience and creating economic opportunity, protecting workers, reducing waste, and ensuring healthier meals for the people that we serve. Cook County is so proud to be a national leader in this space, but to be clear, this work does not happen without partnership. Once again, we're so fortunate to be working with the Chicago Food Policy Action Council and all our county partners, such as the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center, the Cook County Sheriff's Office, and many, many community partners. With $4.5 million in federal recovery funds set aside, we have been able to accelerate this work. We're assessing all county institutions, integrating good food standards into contracts, and as a result, we're beginning to see more fresh and local food on the table. You'll learn more about the GFPP work underway in Cook County carceral institutions during an upcoming panel later today. While we build demand for good food in Cook County, we're also helping our local food suppliers get there. We're building up the supply with nearly $1 million awarded to systematically marginalized local farms and food businesses in suburban Cook County striving to meet these standards. SIFPAC will share more about the upcoming GFPI Community Fund request for applications over the next few days. You'll also hear from powerful voices, engage in interactive workshops, connect through art and culture, and explore community-led solutions that are already transforming our food system. I'm so excited and confident about what lies ahead. Thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing your expertise, your lived experience, and your commitment into this space. We're excited to learn with you, build with you, and move forward together. Welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joshi. What an inspiring way to start this summit. I was already really excited because it's my job to be, but now I'm like really extra excited. I'm really looking forward to all that's to come here and to deepen and further develop why this theme this year. I'm really happy to introduce my boss and one of my favorite people, Chicago Food Policy Action Council Executive Director Roger Cooley. Roger is going to share some additional remarks with us, but first, he's going to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're on and invite you all to go beyond acknowledgement with us by joining in an answer to a few calls to action to support Native and Indigenous communities right now.
Great. Thank you, Sarah Jane. As she mentioned, I'm Roger Cooley, the Executive Director of the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, he, him pronouns. And I'll start by reading the land acknowledgement. The Chicago Food Policy Action Council acknowledges that Chicago, formerly known as Chicago, to the Native peoples, sits on the edge of multiple ecosystems, including swamp, oak savanna, and prairie with waterways connecting the Mississippi River and Great Lakes. We acknowledge the city known today as Chicago sits upon ancestral homeland to the Anishinaabe, the Nisquamish-Kodowin, Council of the Three Fires, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and the Potawatomi, along with dozens of tribes who cultivated and molded the land to sustainably suit their needs since time immemorial. Acknowledgement of the land is an indigenous protocol performed on indigenous lands across the globe. The Chicago Food Policy Action Council acknowledges Anishinaabe for providing the names of Chicago and Lake Michigan, along with multiple territories, waterways, roads, and parks in and around Chicago. We acknowledge it was and is a site of trade, travel, and healing for indigenous people since time immemorial. We acknowledge indigenous knowledge systems and infrastructure continue to be appropriated as the blueprints of Chicago. We acknowledge that the treaties made with the people of the Three Fires have not been honored, and the destruction and dispossession of land and life of indigenous peoples continues until this day. We acknowledge that colonialism is an ongoing structure. We need to build our mindfulness of our present participation to deconstruct the romanticisms of forced removal and prevent further genocide of remaining indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that the city of Chicago is currently home to over 75,000 American Indians, known as urban Indians, who keep their tribal kinship and cultures spanning from over 150 tribal nations. The Chicago Food Policy Action Council acknowledges and supports the modern indigenous people of Chicago, along with those who view Chicago as their ancestral territory and continue to practice their kinship culture, harvest their medicines and foods that continue to grow in Chicago. We acknowledge the land we occupy as indigenous homelands. We have great appreciation and gratitude to those whose territory we occupy, and we acknowledge the remarkable resilience of indigenous peoples and American Indian community that continue to practice their tribal and intertribal cultures while flourishing in modern-day Chicago and continue to enhance our great city's beauty. And so recognizing that called the land acknowledgement has value and importance, but that what is really meaningful is being able to move forward with actions. So we have some lists, and I'm sure you've been able to look at them, but recognizing connecting with local Native communities, to use Native land to learn about Indigenous nations in your area and support their histories, cultures, and sovereignty efforts. Support Indigenous green spaces. Support and visit local Indigenous gardens like in Chicago, the First Nations gardens, recognizing these spaces preserve traditional ecological knowledge. And contribute to Indigenous education. Again, in the Chicago area, it's donating to the Northeastern Illinois University's Native and Indigenous Scholarship Fund, as well as ones in your area, looking to support and directly benefit Native and Indigenous students. So thank you all for taking the time. I believe we're moving to, or Sarah Jane, where do you want to go next?
Oh, Roger, if you have remarks you want to share beyond the land
Yeah, we can jump
please
into
do.
those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as Sarah Jane and Dr. Joshi highlighted that this is our 21st annual Food Justice Summit. We're very excited to be hosting you all along the journey with us. Seeing we've got close to 200 folks calling in this morning, so very excited for you all to be participating with us. And as we move to our keynote speaker, Vivi Moreno, we're very delighted and honored to have her take the time to share her experiences globally, but also within the communities of Pilsen and Little Village in Chicago and all the work that they've done over the years. And that our theme this year is This Table is Ours. So really paying attention to how we're reclaiming our food, land, and power. As Dr. Joshi and Sarah Jane have highlighted, that this has been a very challenging year in the United States, Chicago, Illinois, and globally. That there's a lot of challenges that we're having to struggle with and work through, but really recognizing that there's been many, many community responses over this year to collectively respond, building upon years and years of relationships, trust, many lessons learned more recently in COVID, but also going back generationally about how communities take care of themselves, feed themselves, come together to protect each other when there are folks and forces coming in that are looking to exploit, disrupt, and even change, then, try to reverse and wash out language such as diversity, equity, knowing that these are fundamental conditions, the fundamental issues that we've been dealing with in Chicago and in the United States and globally. And we need to have the kind of courage and power to be able to respond to that. And we have. Really recognizing that there's been many things we've been able to focus on, including engaging in collective care, growing product and food together, recognizing there's many points of opportunity to get back to land access, new projects focusing on water access, hoop houses, expanding compost and soil health in the Chicago area. That folks have been really focused on reinventing deliveries of food with boxes and meals, particularly to respond for folks who were isolated, shut out, couldn't go to work, couldn't go to restaurants because of concerns around ICE raids and fear of staying at home, but that the community stepped up and was able to provide those opportunities, as well as the overlapping crisis of the SNAP changes in benefits and opportunities. That there's many opportunities, as Dr. Joshi was highlighting, between supplying food that's healthy, fair, humane, sustainable to our local institutions, that the dollars that they're spending can be used to support and uplift community partners, socially disadvantaged producers and suppliers who haven't had this opportunity before, but now are. And that we're moving towards organizing and policy action, that there's work to do at state, local, and federal levels, that collectively we can do that for, again, reclaiming our power. Locally, in Illinois, we have our primary taking place next week. So if you haven't already voted early, please get out this weekend, and by next Tuesday, make your voice heard. This is always an opportunity to redirect who's in charge and who's setting goals and priorities for us, and that we want folks who are going to be fighting for us at the local level or national folk fighting for us at community levels and really paying attention and seeing how food is a vital part of any of the policy changes they want to make. We see this summit and all of our work together as part of building what referring to as social infrastructure. We have our roads, we have our food system infrastructure, but we also have our social infrastructure where we come together, build trust, build community, collaborate together, resource each other, problem solve, and envision what's the future we want to come together. But that's social infrastructure, which requires ongoing maintenance and support and building. And so we see the summit as a vital part of that and are really appreciative. We have close to 1,000 folks who've registered this year. We have mini sessions the rest of today and tomorrow online that highlight and hit a lot of the themes I was just hitting on or talking about. And then we have the socio platform, which is another chance for folks to come together if you're not going to be able to come to in person on Friday, which is another awesome opportunity for folks to learn, be together, share laughs, and time together. I really see this as bringing together years and years of family, um, personal family, but also the relationships that have been developed over many decades coming together and being able to continue to build together. And that this is one of my favorite parts of the year to be able to do that together. So thank you all again. And we'll also want to give many appreciations to our staff who have put in many hours to get here. Kathleen, Anthony, Steph, Adam, Sarah Jane, thank you all so much for your work as the programs team. All of the partners that we've pulled together, the consultant partners, the translators, all the folks who've done planning around making sure we're as accessible as possible, really being creative about the opportunities, hands-on opportunities on Friday. All the speakers who are generously giving their time to prepare and speak over the next 2 days. All of the vendors who are coming and sharing their wares and opportunities, also online and in person on Friday. And all of the sponsors, I want to again highlight the Department of Public Health, who make this possible, that we've been able to keep this a free event and as accessible as possible for anybody to attend and participate. Thank you all. Um, and I think we'll move on from there. But thank you, Sarah Jane, and very excited to get going this morning.
Thank you so much, Roger. Really powerful words as always, and just makes me feel even more grateful for the incredible people that I'm lucky to work with at SIFPAC. And also to all of you who are with us here today, 198 of you. Can someone run and get two friends so we can make that a nice round 200? Um, as a host of this year's summit, we at SIFPAC are just really grateful for all of your participation. Those of you in the room right now and those like who are in the future going to be watching this on streaming or having had it shared with them from friends. Um, as an organization that is deeply committed to justice, our work is made possible by what you all bring to it. And for anyone joining us today who's meeting SIFPAC for the first time or who's still getting to know us, I'd like to share just a little bit about our mission and our vision for a just food system as we begin transitioning into programming. At SIFPAC, we envision a food system where all Chicagoans, regardless of race, class, gender, or social identity, have the right to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through community-driven, ecologically regenerative, and economically viable processes. We are on a mission to co-develop, facilitate, advocate for, and support implementation of policies that advance food justice and food sovereignty in Chicago and across the region. Our work is built on trust and relationships. And we align our strategies with models that center our shared purpose in this ecosystem over any one organization or entity. By cultivating networks and catalyzing policy action, we make systemic and institutional change across our food shed. By cultivating knowledge and information sharing networks, we resource our movement for the many fights we are engaged in service of food justice. By demystifying political processes and government institutions, we empower everyday, ordinary people to advocate for the food system we all deserve. And by uplifting that advocacy and power, we gain access to levers that were previously locked away. If that sounds like work you want to participate in or participate in more deeply with us, I want to personally invite you to join our Rhizome network. You can find information about our network and about all of our programs by visiting chicagofoodpolicy.com. Joining our network will allow you to be in community with others in working groups, information sharing networks, and to learn about additional programming that we offer at SIFPAC, including network cultivation, policy advocacy, equitable supply chain development, capital access, and many other programs that are designed to serve the communities that we are part of and very grateful to represent. So as we begin to make our transition into, let's be honest, like the really jazzy part of today, our keynote, I am going to invite you all to review our community agreements and to make a commitment to upholding these agreements in all of the summit spaces that you participate in today. These are agreements that were created collectively by the Rhizome Network and our many partners at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. So these are forged by really deep connection, commitment, and organizing. I'm going to read them through. If anybody has questions about what they mean, I really encourage you to ask that in the chat because you're probably not alone, and one of my incredible colleagues will help with a response. The agreements that we ask you all to internalize for the next 3 days are one diva, one mic. That means speak when it's your turn and let others speak when it's their turn. Move up and move aside. That means take your space, bring your voice to the room, and also support others to do the same. We cannot be articulate all the time. I'm reading from a script right now, so it's easy for me, but we don't need to perfectly say what we bring to the space for it to have value. We center a culture of care. At the end of the day, we are people trying to make the world more just for one another, and care is implicit. Be an active inquiry, in particular about how your personal identities and positions within hierarchies of privilege impact and influence our collective spaces. Prioritize your self-care. You do not have to raise your hand to go to the bathroom here. Take care of your biological and emotional and mental wellness needs. Anticipate discomfort in this space. Discomfort is very generative when we hold it carefully. And be brave. Hold a courageous space here. We are all here to speak to the real injustices we're facing, and those are complex. So with that invitation, I want to, yes, go ahead to the next slide, Kathleen. I want to take this opportunity to thank the partners who allow this space to exist. The community partners are those folks who keep us accountable to the agreements you just read and to the communities that we are here to serve. So that is the County Department of Public Health, Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, the Illinois Extension at U of I Urbana-Champaign, Gary Comer Youth Center, Chicago Grows Food, First Nations Garden, Greater Chicago Food Depository, and Chi Nations Youth Council. All of these organizations have not only provided us with oversight and support, but they have assigned human power to come to routine conversations about this work so that we have real community input, oversight, and guidance. Thank you all so much. I also want to acknowledge our summit sponsors. Without these sponsors, none of us would be sitting here. We have many in-kind sponsors who are too numerous to name, who have provided things like raffle prizes for Friday and other concrete, tangible goods. Thank you all. The organizations you see listed here are those who have financially supported the summit and allowed us to produce this event. American Farmland Trust, Green City Market, Chicago Botanic Garden, Illinois Environmental Council, Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, Partnership for a Healthier America, Greater Chicago Food Depository, Hot Liquor Capital, and Compere Financial. Thank you all so deeply for resourcing us to hold this incredibly important convening. I'd also like to share my really deep appreciation to all of SIFPAC's financial sponsors. As Roger mentioned in his comments, this work needs resources, and some of those resources are financial. We are deeply grateful to our financial supporters, without whom we would not be able to do this work in this way. So a huge amount of gratitude to our funders and supporters. And finally, I want to thank our summit event planning specialist. This is the team that makes all the gears turn for this event. Daniela Mazio has been laser focused on supporting access and inclusion in this summit, making sure that this is an event that welcomes all and puts everyone on a level playing field. Madison Evans has been like the wizard behind all the programming and logistics. You are all able to access WebEx because Madison set it up for us. Kay has done a tremendous amount of communication support, and Sydney has made sure that our event is infused with the arts, culture, and vibrancy that you all know SIFPAC for. Thank you so much to our event planning specialists. And I want to also re-up Roger's huge round of applause for Kathleen Valdez, who is our program manager for events and convenings. Kathleen is the big brain, the wizard behind the curtain. Is that good or bad? Kathleen is amazing and is the reason that we're all able to be here together. So I just want to lift her up and shout her out because I'm very grateful to be on her team. So thank you all again for being here with us. We're about to move into our keynote address, the main event. I know you're all on the edge of your seats, but one last thing before we do that. I want to encourage you to make sure that you have registered for the WebEx app so that you can fully participate in all the fabulous programming this week. That's virtual programming today and tomorrow morning, and our exciting in-person event on Friday at South Shore Cultural Center. You can scan this QR code to make sure that you have the app installed and to access our event. And that is where you can create your agenda, you can keep notes, you can make connections with others in the food system. I really invite you to use this tool as much as possible. It is a very helpful and supportive resource for attendees. Okay, it's time. I am delighted to introduce a speaker who inspires me personally on a bi-weekly basis as a very active member of our Rhizome Network and our Resilient Food Systems Working Group. But beyond that, inspires me daily as a leader I look up to and admire. Vivi Moreno is a senior food justice organizer at the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization, or LVEJO. She is the co-founder of LVEJO's Villita Farm, located in Villita Park. Villita Park was a former superfund site turned park after 15 years of community organizing. Viviana created and facilitated food justice programs for youth and stewarded Semillas de Justicia community garden along with 40 immigrant families. Additionally, as co-founder and lead of Villita Farm, Viviana leads the annual distribution of thousands of pounds of produce. As a result, the farm has received the 2023 Force of Nature Award by Chicago Wilderness Alliance and the 2024 Domestic Food Sovereignty Prize by the U.S. Food Sovereignty Alliance. Viviana is also a founding co-owner of Catatumbo Cooperative Farm, a worker-owned, immigrant, and LGBTQ-led farm on the Southside of Chicago that provided Mesoamerican and South American crops to Greater Chicago. Currently, she advocates for Spanish language agricultural education, is working toward becoming a master naturalist, and enjoys birding with her family. Vivi, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Buenos dias. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I hope you are all able to have multiple temperature drinks, your teas, your coffee, whatever you need to be centered in this space and for us to spend this time together. I'm incredibly grateful for this invitation to share virtual space with you all today. I actually started attending the SIFPAC Food Justice Summit in 2017. So it's been beautiful to witness the evolution of the space for the past 9 years. As you all have heard, my name is Vivi Moreno. I'm a food justice organizer with the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization, LVEJO for short. I'm also a parent, I'm a spouse, a caretaker, I'm a student of natural relationships, and I'm an urban farmer. I also occasionally like to creep on birds, as you heard. Some call it birding. Um, I come from a place that we call the Sun Love Land, which is the city motto of Maracaibo, Venezuela. And then we can get the next slide. Thank you. So if you see the map right now, I'm right where that little star, the little light blue star is on the northwest of the country. To the north, we have the Caribbean Sea. To the west or to the left, when you see that yellow line, we border with Colombia. So even though we are not an island, we very much identify with being Caribbean and with Caribbean culture. Um, yeah, I come from a border state with Colombia, shaped by all the cultural and political tensions that come with border territories. I come from a generation of liveliness and directness. Our city is the hottest city in Venezuela, and the state that I'm from is the state that produces the most amount of oil in Venezuela. So the heat of our land makes us get to the point so we can get to where we need to be. Maybe some of you here have experienced that from me, and I apologize. Um, my country also has one of the most biodiverse collection of biomes in the world. We can go next. So we have extensive grasslands. We are part of the Andes mountain range. We have tepuis, which are also known as tabletop mountains. We have swamp forests, part of the Amazon rainforest, dry forests, savannas, and vast wetlands. The first picture to the top left are capybaras. We call them chihuitas, and I wanted to show my capybara that I bought my child. We make sure that we have my local fauna represented in our household. Um, and we also have one of the most diverse in bird species. In fact, we are ranked 11th in the world in terms of biodiversity. We can go next. So this is the Venezuelan turpial. This is the Venezuelan turpial. And for those of you that are birders, you might be like, hey, I've kind of seen this bird before. So this is a cousin of the Baltimore Oriole, not the sports team, but a native bird of North America. So they have the same genus. And every time I see them, particularly on the north side, I feel like I'm reminded of my country because they look very, very similar. Our land is also, unfortunately, very rich in crude oil and minerals, which has given us the burden that many other resource-rich global South nations experience. And that is outside intervention, disruption of politics, extraction, pollution, violence. And I wanted to first paint a picture that highlights the beauty that has and still exists and the people. So because lately it's the people who are grossly ignored or caged both here in the US and back in my country. Oh, I think we are my people who are talked about as if they themselves were resources. As a Venezuelan in the diaspora, I want people to see us beyond what we can offer. And as an immigrant, I want the same. So I'm gonna just talk about this slide a little bit. The slide with the beautiful person with a flag is from Venezuelan Pride last year. The slide on the top says No hay comida. This is a protest based on food scarcity in the country. We have obviously folks dancing, which is very much part of our sazon, of our flavoring. We have this beautiful woman holding a cardboard sign that says Luchamos por la libertad, la tuya también, which means we are fighting for freedom, for yours too. We have this beautiful men playing drums, which are in the Bobure area, which are in the southern part of the state that I was born in. And then we have a woman farming. And then to the bottom left, we have a woman from the Wayu Nation weaving, which is one of the indigenous nations that also live between the area that I'm from and Colombia. So it feels like a lifetime ago, but on January 3rd of this year, believe it or not, my country was invaded by this country. And what followed was barely reported on, and it had everything to do with food. In conversations with friends and family, I learned that the first thing people did in the aftermath of this intervention was to run to already depleted grocery stores. And people stood in long lines for hours. For some, it took most of the day to try and secure some nourishment. And very quickly, people found empty shelves, and the little food that they found was extremely overpriced. So the reason I'm sharing this with you today is because even as we try to tackle all these big policy-based issues in our local food system, the reality is that our local food system is intrinsically tied to global ones, specifically to global South ones. When political interventions like these happen, coupled with internal neglect and repression, people tend to seek a way to survive these conditions. And one of the ways is migration, which, if you're leaving your home because you cannot feed yourself or your family, that is forced migration. You might notice I'm speaking through a very specific lens today, and that is the lens in which I very honestly operate lately. And it's the lens in which I farm, I organize, and care for my family. And in these next few minutes that we have together, I'd like to invite you to be part of this perspective, which is an immigrant perspective. And this perspective isn't new, and I'm certainly not the only one, but we have this platform together, and this is how I'm choosing to use it. I'd like to share a quote by poet and environmentalist Diandra Marisset that says, "Immigrants are invited to plant the future, but punished for growing roots in it." After taking this in, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to read an excerpt of a poem by Johnny Technight. It says, "This happens daily, this ruining, this encroaching darkness, but here, amongst these people, so full-throated with their convictions toward a more abundant world, and rebuilt, mosaicked by their singing and tenderness and rage." I also would like to hold a moment of silence for the following folks I'd like to uplift. Their names are Nurul Amin Shah, Dr. Linda Davis, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, Keith Porter, Renee Good, Alex Pretty, Jose Castro Rivera, Roberto Carlos Montoya Valdez, Isaías Sánchez Barbosa, and to the over 2 people who have died in concentration camps this past year because they dared to live lives of community building and hard work and sacrifice. They should still be here and with their loved ones today. When I started writing this speech a month and a half ago, there were less names than there are now. Let's take a 1-minute pause. Now, thank you for that. If you feel moved to do so, we can take a collective breath. So wherever you're at, if you're standing up, sitting down, laying down, let's take a deep, deep, deep breath. And we can go to the next slide. Let's spend this time together by taking this moment of reflection and giving ourselves a moment of breath for all the times recently and in the past where we've caught ourselves breathless when we have directly experienced or were witnesses of injustices. Let's take another deep breath. Let this moment also breathe life and gratitude for the times where you have chosen to be part of communities of care and participate in joy even when you didn't feel like it, and take steps, big or small, towards societal transformation. Let's take one more deep breath. Okay. Thank you for doing that. I'm happy to be here today to share more about our work at LVEJO and the way that we take care of one another by addressing environmental justice and engaging in land-based organizing. With the latter, I mean the land as the stage for relationship building, for community response, for strategizing, for any excuse to gather and eat, for guiding the pace of the work, for praying and for grieving, sometimes as a space to ask for help. Today, I'll be sharing a bit about the spaces we steward and the responses we've come up with to support our community. And then I'll share this slide of me holding one of our beautiful corn that we grow. And it says, our vision is for our community to have the right to fresh, local, and culturally significant food. We work towards food justice through agroecology, where the self-determination of the community, land stewards, and ecosystems is honored and valued. Thank you. Like many people, I am the result of many teachers, and I owe a lot of my organizing and land stewardship trajectory to women. This is Trini, who is my amazing coworker, and I really love this picture of her gathering squash and pumpkin flowers. I stare at this picture all the time. And I want to specifically dedicate this to Black, Indigenous, and immigrant women. The majority of what I've learned as a gardener, urban farmer, and food justice advocate has been passed down by knowledge keepers, which in my personal case have been primarily women of color, and more specifically, mothers of color. It was the women, the mamas of the Semillas de Justicia community garden, who first guided me to plant flowers with care. It was with them I planted my first peach, cherry, and plum trees. It was through them I learned about the intense desire to feed people and feed myself. Before the pandemic, the Semillas Garden used to host weekly community potlucks. And here's a beautiful picture of just our amazing tables full of food. Every Wednesday, we would share funds with a different family, and this family would cook for the entire garden. And I've never seen such a demonstration of pride in sharing abundance while creating moments of joy and quite literally expanding our culinary experiences. We ate foods from different regions of Mexico and Central America. Community gardens encourage us to break from isolation and seek community care outside of our homes. Community gardens are hubs for mutual aid, for socializing, popular education, and resource sharing, particularly right now, where being connected is absolutely key to survival. Community gardens act as tiny lungs embedded in our communities by reducing air pollution. They vastly improve soil quality and provide a space where community members are active participants in increasing biodiversity. We create natural habitats for more than one community. What makes the Little Village neighborhood special to me is the vast and extensive knowledge that exists for creating these habitats and for regenerative food production, like the use of compost, the use of ashes to aerate the soil, the use of organic nitrogen, which is aged chicken poop, and the use of flowers. And shifting the attention a little bit, it's actually the men, the señores from the garden, who have been key in planting a huge diversity of flowers, which has created an explosion of insects and birds, all necessary pollinators, all necessary community members. And this ongoing conversation with the land never feels like we are interactive with nature. It feels like we are embedded in and creating an integrated ecosystem for ourselves. But before this place became a hub for intergenerational exchanges, it had to be fought for. Like most of anything we've had to organize around in the neighborhood, Semillas opened in 2013, but before that, there had been an almost 8-year-old battle to remediate this place. And then we can go to the next slide. I'd like to show this. Thank you. As you might have guessed, this was a deeply contaminated site. This place, which we care for so deeply, was used originally as a lubricating oil and grease manufacturing facility between 1923 and 1988. That's 65 years. The garden has been in operation for around 13 years. The site underwent excavation and disposal of petroleum impacted soil. The two main contaminants found on the land are called PNAs and TPHs. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that. So PNAs is a chemical compound called polynuclear aromatic compounds. It sounds really complicated. But the thing about PNAs is that they are resistant to breakdown in the environment. They're carcinogenic and they're mutagenic. So they can disrupt cellular processes and lead to DNA damage, increasing the risk of various cancers. The second one I mentioned, TPH, or the total petroleum hydrocarbon. The thing with TPH is that they tend to find their way to waterways and soils via accidents, such as spills. For Semillas, we know that oil barrels were buried underground, and when initial cleanup was happening, the barrels were open and their contents were spilled on the land. The tricky thing about TPH is that as it comes in contact with soil, it has a high chance to move through the soil and into groundwater. And in terms of people's health, long-term exposure to TPHs can cause permanent damage to a person's central nervous system. On this slide, we can see the proximity to residential homes. The homes are right across the street to the left side. The garden is the triangle that we see, and the homes are right in front of it. As we think back on the timeline I just shared, keep in mind that the majority of families living on Troy Street have been there for well over a decade, well before the garden was founded. And thanks to community-led efforts, the remediation process proved to be successful, again, not without a fight. And a place that used to be a source of environmental harm now has a completely different role in the community. And we can go to the next slide. So this is what Semillas looks like now. It is stewarded by about 70 plus immigrant families. It is beautiful. It is luscious. There are so many bird species. There are trees growing. There are different levels of a forest. It's an amazing, beautiful space. I'd now like to move to a site where I've been actively involved in, which is Villita Farm. This site that we currently care for was born of many batons passed down for over 20 years. Each community member and organizer were envisioning a different reality from what was presented to them at the time. The farm is nestled in the southern end of Villita Park. Its former name was Park 553, and before that, it was called Silotex. This is what the park used to look like in 2012. All throughout, it was called a superfund site. And that doesn't mean like, yay, super fun. It means superfund, which is a place that is so contaminated that any dreams of remediation used to almost feel futile. We have the Little Village community to thank for the fact that this place is now clean, public, with children and families playing and taking walks, and young people scraping their knees in their skate park. And every spring, there are special Olympic tournaments that are played right on the other side of our farm. We can go to the next slide. So these are some pictures from many, many moons ago from young organizers in the neighborhood to remediate and clean this park. So we are standing on the shoulders of tinies and of really bigs. So all of this was possible through fierce and relentless organizing by families, by LVEJO, by allies, and anyone who believed that communities like ours deserved open spaces. Villita Farm was envisioned into the very design of Villita Park. Between 2016 and 2018, when I used to facilitate a food justice youth program in the summers. We used to walk the streets of Little Village, interviewing corner store owners and small family-owned grocery stores. We can go to the next slide. And street vendors to ask if they purchase fresh fruits and vegetables grown in their own neighborhood. So these are pictures of them. Some of these young folks are now like really well-known urban planners and amazing organizers. So it's really beautiful seeing them so young. This intentional work led to the founding of La Vita Farm in the fall of 2021. And we are now entering our fifth season at the farm. And the level of community support for this space has been overwhelming. We farm on 1/3 of a 1.3 acre space that we have available. And like many farms in Chicago, we grow a diverse set of crops, which are primarily direct suggestions from community members. As a newly found space, every year, our goal is to continue to expand the farm. And eventually, we hope to farm in the entirety of the space. So far, the food we've grown has been distributed at no cost to the community. And we can go to the next slide. These distributions were particular, I think, back one. Thank you. These distributions were particularly crucial last year, and we expect that need to increase exponentially in the coming months and years. In our short time at the farm, the ways that we have intentionally chosen to interact with the space have shaped the actual ecology of the space. We have witnessed a great variety of insects and birds and mammals and even predators roam around the land. And we can go next. So this is a lynx cicada. I took a really clear picture of it because we were harvesting hot peppers and he was screaming at us and he was right behind us. And it was so, so loud. So I was like, okay, you clearly want attention. Let us give you attention. And then something I'm not sharing right now, which are some images that we received this week. We are working in partnership with an ecologist from the Lincoln Park Zoo who installed some trail cams at the farm because we're having this feeling that there's a lot of animal movement there. And this week we got some really beautiful pictures of a coyote couple that visit the farm every single night and they relax, they kind of lay down. So there's something about the space that is now becoming really safe for different communities that are not human. Thank you. A lot of us believe that all of these like nature connections are related. And the fact that a coyote, we can go back to the thank you, the cicada. And the fact that a coyote sometimes sleeps in our hoop house, while scary, may also be a sign that these larger animals feel comfortable with the slow ecosystem that we are creating. The resiliency, diversity, and nutritional content of the food we grow is directly related to the ecosystems we build around it. Besides the beautiful creatures we are working to nurture, we are also accompanied by factors like living in an environmental justice community, also known as EJ communities. And we're also primarily immigrant communities. If this is your first time hearing the term EJ communities, like what is that? That means that EJ community means it's a community that is disproportionately burdened by environmental hazards and pollution. And in Chicago, as most of you know or may not know, almost all of these areas are located in Black and brown neighborhoods. So I want to show this cumulative impact map that LVEJO was a part of publishing. It's a little dated now. And then the tiny writing at the bottom, it's scoring for multiple environmental factors. I only highlighted a few. So we have proximity to superfund sites, air toxics, respiratory hazard, particulate matter 2.5, which is an emission by diesel trucks. And it's so tiny, I think it's smaller than like a hair that is really, it gets to your lungs really quickly. Toxic releases into waterways, proximity to hazardous waste management facilities, and many more environmental factors. So if you notice the center of the map where it's really bright red, that's where Little Village is. I think I invite you to take like a few seconds to notice where are the oranges, where are the reds, what parts of Chicago do those areas represent? Now, our farm is in an interesting location where we have homes to the west, whose 175 yards LVEJO helped remediate in 2009 because of their high levels of contamination. That's 175 like home spaces that we had to help remediate. Now, directly to the east, we have Cook County Jail, which occupies around 90 acres of institutional space. And that is more the amount of open space and local schools combined. To the south, we have 31st Street, where over 1,000 diesel trucks pass every single day. And then to the south of that, we have the Collateral Channel, which is a canal off of the Sanitary and Ship Canal, which is part of the south branch of the Chicago River. And the canal has methane emissions that are so strong that we often get headaches when we work on hot days. And something that families that live across the street from the farm have endured for many, many years. The canal is so contaminated that there's a current effort to designate it also as a Superfund site, which is similar to the former designation that La Villita Park had. Additionally, and understanding that air pollution has no borders and that we are certainly not the only ones experiencing this, 3 out of the 5 years we have been farming have been partially interrupted by bad air quality due to climate change driven forest and peat fires from Canada. So I'm pretty sure if you've been in Chicago in the summer, the last 2, 3 years, you've seen the days where we've had really intense days and the air quality index, the AQI, is like going through the roof in the hundreds. By the way, if you don't know about AQIs, your phone, your weather app on your phone, if you scroll down, it tells you the AQI for the day. But I'm pretty sure you might know about it. Our community had transformed a 22-acre deeply harmful site into a public space where hyperlocal produce is grown. What's important to highlight about EJ communities is not only that we are sites where systemic environmental inequities continue to happen, but that our responses for how to address these harms tend to be the most creative, the most collective, and the best informed. Now, the trajectory of farming and garden in Little Village has always been tied to environmental justice and community organizing. Because gardens and community farms are absolutely political spaces and continue to bear ongoing fruits from decades of collective labor. We can go to the next slide. I just want to take a moment. I absolutely love this picture. This was taken 2 years ago at the farm. We were having a visit um, from a local school in the neighborhood who this is the first farm that they can visit in Little Village. And we grow a milpa. We make sure that corn is a big staple. And we did an exercise where we asked the kiddos to walk through the corn in silence and quietly. They loved it. I really, really love this picture because for a lot of us that are from this continent, we are people of the corn. Corn is quite literally embedded in our DNA. So I felt like this was a really beautiful encuentro or encounter between them. So both sites, Semillas de Justicia Community Garden and La Villita Park, were operated by petroleum byproduct manufacturing companies for decades, which is significantly longer than they actually have been stewarded as community managed and biodiverse spaces. So the road ahead of us is long. We have a ton of harm to undo. And many community residents are living archives of transformation in the face of influential, harmful industries. Many community residents, unfortunately, did not get to see all of this transformation. And even though we didn't cause it, we have taken it upon ourselves to undo decades of harm, all while experiencing a new wave of violence against our community. It is these folks, acknowledged keepers of environmental history, who are now being targeted as a community, regardless of citizenship or immigration status, which are, in my opinion, and I think it's factual, are completely arbitrary designations to relegate human beings to tiers of who deserves rights and who doesn't, based on the absolute randomness of being born in a particular geographic area. To add to all of these compounded issues, we are already facing the pressures of policies that continue to dismantle historic and recent social safety net programs such as SNAP. of which almost 2 million people in Illinois depend on, and which we could easily fund. Easily. Today, SNAP could be funded. I also like to take a tiny brief pivot because I really admire this program to mention the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Cooperative, LFPA. It was also called, the Illinois version was Illinois Eats. A lot of farmers here, a lot of folks here are probably still with their feelings hurt about Illinois Eats being terminated, which proved to be really successful in its short life and in strengthening the local food supply chain by contracting small and hyper-local food producers while distributing to food banks and other feeding programs. It was a true attempt at hyper-localizing our food system. Thank you for that link. So if you want to know more about it, please check it out in the chat. Going back to SNAP and the way that this affects everyone, in this case, referring to immigrant communities. It affects everyone, but I'm going to just kind of focus on my folks a little bit. I don't mean to leave anybody out. The new SNAP restrictions that went into effect on February 1st fully removed around 146,000 legally present immigrants in Illinois, specifically people with refugee status, asylees, and survivors of human trafficking. What's common between all of these designations are people quite literally having experienced extreme violence. As growers and community organizers, we have experienced firsthand how these policies do not favor local family and community farms, and neither do they favor small and mid-sized grocery stores. So to that, we add human power, climate change, and events such as drastic storms and droughts, industrial legacies in EJ neighborhoods. Now you know what EJ means. Incarceration and deportation of immigrant communities with an emphasis on Black, Indigenous, and Brown immigrants. These are the very people that have been the backbone of our food chain and whose knowledge has been key to diversifying the way we produce, process, and consume food in this country. These attacks are further intensified for immigrant and urban farmers who are having a very challenging time trying to continue their operations, not to mention pursuing any goals to scale production and access larger and more sustainable markets. And this is because we are so busy making sure that families who can't leave their homes are fed, and our children are walked to school without fear of losing their parents, or parents fearing losing their children. Our efforts are concentrating in assuring loved ones wake up in their homes and not in a detention center. We can go next. To quote Oglala Lakota Sioux chef and food sovereignty advocate Sean Sherman, Black, Indigenous, immigrant, and other communities of color have been the backbone of the system since the beginning, and we have worked hard to feed this country without equality for most of that history. You cannot remove us without breaking everything. That being said, this might be the most appropriate time to imagine a different configuration of our food system, where perhaps immigrant communities are not reduced by the labor that they can contribute, but by the richness that they share simply by being, because they exist, because we exist. And I'd like to invite you to imagine a reality where localized food systems are nourished in such a tremendous way that programs like SNAP are considered obsolete. Imagine that. And we no longer run the risk of having the rug pulled out from under us at the whims of changing administrations. And in this alternative reality, we could fiercely embody the mission that affirms that every single person has the right to food, to local, seasonal, joyful, cultural, and spiritual food. And this will not be considered a radical statement, but a collectively held value. All of us present in this moment together, all of us here today, represent a wide range of our local, regional, and even federal food chain. It has now become clear to many that you don't have to be a brown Latina person in the food system to be targeted. Our current roles, which seek to address these injustices and work towards equity, are in jeopardy if we don't make brave decisions to identify who is currently vulnerable in our area of focus. For example, if you work with resourcing farmers, are you paying attention to the growers who have had to slow down or stop tending to their land because they've had to jump into survival mode? If you're a distributor, aggregator, or a wholesaler, are you making sure that the farms you procure from have explicitly anti-racist and fair wage practices that compensate their workers? Do these farms have safety protocols in place to protect farm workers in the chance that they are targeted at their workplace? Do they have support systems mapped out in case your workers are targeted outside of the farm? We know that food safety certifications are the standard to approve larger contracts for food producers. That's a given. But the safety of the people growing the food should be taken as much priority, if not more. Something some of you have heard me say repeatedly is that the Chicago food system is very connected. Many and most of us know each other or know of each other, but we are not quite coordinated. We need to be brave and we need to be bold and we need to reach across fields, all pun intended. Institutions, nonprofits, businesses, foundations, grassroots organizations need to be able to talk to one another and quickly adapt to drive more collaborative work. In the past years, many of us have had no other option but to adapt quickly to feed each other. Some of us haven't had the privilege to opt out. So I'm inviting you all in. To those of you directly affected, make sure that you are explicit in your needs, ask for support, continue on as your capacity allows, and make sure you build recovery time into your projects, your teams, and your lives. Because hoping that you make it home after a workday, continue to donate to immigration bond funds, getting groceries to families, all while seeing the collective humanity of the global majority be questioned daily, can take a toll on the spirit. Please be explicit that these are not times to be operating at the same speed, simply because some of us are not experiencing reality the same. For anyone working with those most affected, it's important that you adjust your expectations, be flexible, and offer support. This is time to be extending a tremendous amount of grace to one another. To touch on collectivism a bit, I recently went back to school to study biology. And it has affirmed, I'm about to get real nerd on y'all. Apologies, but not really. It has affirmed what we have already practiced. And what I've learned so far, I'm going to share with you, greatly mimics the way that we have been able to survive in the past year. I've learned that cooperation and interdependence is built into the very fabric of our being. So it's not just a cultural practice. Even at the cellular level, life evolved through cooperation, and it has now been proven, and it's taught worldwide in biology courses, that our very cells evolve via intimate associations between organisms. So this challenges the notion that we've evolved to be solely competitive and that only the fittest can survive. In fact, we have survived as a species because we have been taking care of each other. If you're curious about this on like a nerdy level, this is called the endosymbiotic theory by evolutionary biologist Lee Margulies, who faced tremendous amount of sexism. And you can Google this. She was actually born in Chicago. So now that these practices are new, right? But since COVID-19 in 2020, we have been forcibly pushed to make decisions on how to make it out together. Mutual aid has been crucial in community survival and connection. And what makes it so efficient is that it has empowered everyone, even those most vulnerable, to be active participants in resource sharing. Everyone has something to share. And then now to bring it to soil health, we're doing what plants, microbes, and fungi do in soils, which is to not only take what we need and then share a small piece of our leftovers, but we take what we need, and then if we have it, we give our absolute best. And this is what creates abundance. However, because mutual aid is so grounded and focused on collective survival rather than making profit, it hasn't gotten the recognition, platform, or even funding as an integral part of our food system. This is interesting to me because it is through mutual aid that thousands of families have been fed and kept alive while sheltering in place in the past year, particularly in Chicago and Minneapolis. This may or may not be a positive thing, this lack of recognition though, because I believe that some things should remain autonomous and independent and free. And I would like to acknowledge also that quite a few spaces have actually recognized this power and quickly moved resources that primarily went to those most affected. Now I want to share a little bit about what we do at LVEJO. So at LVEJO, we practice mutual aid in various ways. We ran a hot meals program called Farm for Familias, which Chef Fresh, I see you, has been an integral and essential part of it. Taryn is here too. Like there's so many people here that have touched this program in one way or another. From 2020 to 2025, focusing on families in Little Village, Englewood, and other neighborhoods in Chicago Southside. This program is currently still ongoing and is being stewarded by Getting Grown Collective. Also, inspired by Greater Englewood, we install edible gardens in around 24 households in Little Village through our Backyard Gardens program. And we've also done quite a few versions of grocery boxes, which many of you present here have experience in doing and continue to do so. And to that, thank you. We partner with local coordinators to use our growing sites as pop-up pantries where people also took bags of freshly harvested produce. We listened to our spidey senses, and we moved our in-person produce distributions to home deliveries when we felt it was the safest options for our family. And we made the right decision. The next few years are going to continue to test us to limits in ways that we have probably not yet imagined. And our food system is particularly vulnerable because people who make it all happen are being targeted. I warmly invite everyone here to be intentional about collective survival. Then we can go to the next slide. I just really like this picture of people tending the land, like, because they're doing something that requires like very meticulous and delicate repetitive movements. So yeah. I understand that these times can feel so overwhelming and that keeping a low profile or checking out or keeping to oneself may feel soothing, but it will honestly not sustain us in the long run. By all means, we must care for our nervous systems the best way we can, and we need to be actively reaching for one another. Across communities, organizations, and institutions, and put in the work to rebuild relationships that can sustain us in the long run. If in moments of heightened fear, you find yourself asking, what could I possibly do? Everything feels so futile. There's nothing to do. I encourage you to remember the words of good old Mr. Rogers. And, I watch children's cartoons because, I got a kiddo, which is look for the helpers. Many have already been on the ground doing the work and can guide you. Make sure you come with humility. Like we say in Little Village, honestly, a bunch of neighborhoods, you got to come correct. You got to come humble. And make sure that frankly, many helpers could probably use the break as well. I hope that from here, you take care of yourselves, but taking the fact that individual well-being is only as strong as collective community care. So go ahead and say yes to the potlucks. Bring your energy to a farmer's land and support their work. Go to that friend's birthday party. Attend that community meeting. Share food. But most importantly, share grievances. You need to let yourself be seen. And finally, do the work to actively see and seek those who are purposely being unseen. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention and for this chance to share a little bit of me with you. If you would like to just get in touch, here's some information. If you want to learn more about how we responded last year as a farm, there's going to be a session, I believe at 3:45 by our farm team today at the summit. So please check it out. And I'm just so grateful to share this space with you. I've breaking bread with many of you here. I've had many insightful conversations with so many of you here. And thank you.
Vivi, thank you so much. I had to work really hard to stop crying to come back on and thank you. And I cannot imagine that I'm alone in that. I know we don't have like the full picture of the audience here, but just look at all the love in the chat. You have invited us to such a deep and powerful and inspiring next step. I can't imagine a better way to kick off this summit. And to all of the attendees, keep the love for Vivi coming in the chat. And like all my elder millennials, please join me in doing like the Care Bear stare version of a round of applause. Send love, gratitude, positive energy toward Vivi. It is an endeavor to write what you just shared with us and to do so powerfully and clearly. We are deeply, deeply grateful for you. not just in this moment, but for your leadership in the food system and for all that you do for Chicago, for all of the communities represented here. I cannot thank you enough. Um, I know we had some Q&A in the chat. I don't know that we have enough time to answer them, but this session is recorded, and we encourage people to access it via YouTube next week when it's up and go back and get all the names. If you have specific questions, you can email them to summit@chicagofoodpolicy.com. And Vivi very kindly offered many ways to connect with them offline. Um, thank you so much. And thank you all so much for joining this keynote session and opening invitation to the 21st Annual Food Justice Summit. What's next is a day that's jam freaking packed full of sessions that go deeper into many of the realities that Vivi named in her keynote address. If you have not already downloaded the WebEx app, do that because that's where you can see all of the sessions that are coming up today and tomorrow morning and where you can connect with work that's happening on Friday. Steph has very helpfully put in the chat the next sessions coming up very shortly here, where they're about to start. And again, we just really encourage you to come back and reference the recording of Vivi's address today. There's enough in there to keep us all busy for a couple of years at least, I think. And I think with that, I'm going to wrap us unless you have any final parting words to share, Vivi.
No, I'm just grateful for this space. It feels like I know we're virtual. I know I can't see your faces, but it does feel like a big old family hangout. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you all. We will see you at the next sessions and throughout the next 3 days. I can't wait to encounter you, whether it's online or in person on Friday. Thank you to everything that you're bringing. Oh, I see some people in the chat noting that we technically do have until 11:30. Vivi, if you want to stay on and answer
Yeah, I
questions, you're
can.
allowed to.
Yeah, at 11:30, I gotta run to my biology class, but I have some time if folks have any questions.
We had one that came in the chat. Thank you for your generosity. Why don't we keep it to like two, maybe max three questions, folks? But this is a nice tee up, I think, for you. An attendee shared, "You're so inspiring. How did you feel starting out in urban ag in Chicago? And what advice would you give to those early in their urban ag careers?"
I started looking. So for me, something that was very important for to me is I wanted to learn about farming and land stewardship from people of color, which you can interpret that as you may, but to me it was very, very important because of the history of violence and like forced labor that a lot of our bodies have in them in terms of interacting with land. And so for me, how I started, which I was like, I don't know anything. Where do I start? So I started seeking out the people that had really amazing values, Black and brown and indigenous farmers that were doing it. And I was like, how are you doing this? But first, can I offer my hands? Can I offer my body on the land to support your work while you talk, maybe? And to me, I think there's something tricky because I think being of service is essential to maintain human ecosystems, and at the same time, we also gotta hold our own. But I think I approach folks with a service mind, which was, hey, I wanna reach out to you. I like what you're doing. Can I come work? And as I put my hands on the land, I feel like I learned a lot from folks. One of the main catalyst places that a lot of folks know about is Soulfire Farm. Their program definitely sparked things, and then I decided that while upstate New York is really idyllic, like I want to do this work in Chicago. And I started talking to folks in Chicago that were doing that work. And the majority of them have been particularly Black and brown women. And so I followed their lead, and that's kind of how I started. So I always go with like who is already doing the work and how can I support them? And maybe if they'll let me inch by them a little bit, maybe I can soak up some knowledge.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for that great question. There's one more in the chat. Would you consider a project to create green spaces along the river in Little Village? Local youth calling it uh, LV Woods.
There is so LVEJO, we are part of the food justice campaign. We have water justice campaigns. We do environmental policy work. We do transportation justice. So we have a team that does particularly water justice work, and they are currently tackling the collateral channel, which they're working towards designating it as a superfund site. Currently, unfortunately, a lot of that work has been stalled because of the change of administration and decimation of the EPA. But if you email me, I can put you in touch with them because they are doing that work actively, and we'd probably love to hear from you if you have ideas. Oh, it's Sunshine. Hey. But yeah, Sunshine, you got my info. I can connect you with our water justice team, and then yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Vivi, for generously answering a couple more questions. I think I was like just an extra bonus to get to hear some specific insight to this group. And we absolutely do not want to make you late for class. So with that, I'll wrap us up for today. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Thank you, Vivi, for sharing your brilliance and yourself with us. And I will see you all at the next session.